Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for yielding generous time for my comments. And I also want to thank you for your strong support for this legislation, and take a moment also to thank Ms. Jackson Lee for her strong words of support, and her passion was evident and felt in her words. This is a very close topic to my heart, very near and dear to me, I think, as most members in this body know. I spent 33 years in law enforcement before I came to Congress. I've been here 10 years. I tell people I just look like I've been here 40 years. But I have had the blessing of serving in many different ways, first in the Air Force and now in Congress, and today is just an honor to stand here in support of this legislation, because this week we have families from all across the country. And when I arrived at the airport this afternoon at 3:30, motorcades lined up to escort the survivors of the fallen officers. Honor guards standing at the gates where people are coming off the airplanes to escort the families of the fallen officers. These men and women risk their lives every day across this great nation to protect our communities, protect our families, protect our children. And we need to help them. And this bill does just that. Because when they leave home, they don't know if they're coming back. The families don't know if they're coming back home that day or that evening. My own family has had that experience, watching me being wheeled into a hospital room with stab wounds in the side of my neck. They learned about it on TV. Now, that was back in the 70s, so it was a little bit different time back then, but still a dangerous job. We worked hard to work with the New York Police Department, the Sergeants Benevolent Association, and the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association to rename this bill after the two New York police officers, Ramos and Liu. Because this is a story where this blue alert could have made a difference. It could have made a difference. Because the suspect in this case shot his girlfriend in Maryland at 5:45 in the morning, and then at 2:45, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, showed up in New York after posting on social media that he was going to make angels out of police officers that day. But as Ms. Jackson Lee said, the information came to NYPD too late. We think Blue Alert can make a difference. We think Blue Alert can save lives. We think Blue Alert can keep our officers safer on the streets. In Seattle, Washington, there's a community called Lakewood, and it's just a half an hour, 40 minutes south of Seattle, city of Lakewood. And in 2009, there were 4 police officers sitting in a coffee shop. They were having a squad meeting, a sergeant and 3 police officers, Sergeant Reminger, Officer Owens, Officer Griswold, and Officer Reichert. Just sitting there, having coffee, talking about what was going to happen that day, what they were going to focus on that day to keep that community safe. A man walked in and assassinated all 4 officers. Two-day manhunt occurred looking for that suspect, for that murder, for that monster. 2 days. If we'd have had Blue Alert, and during those 2 days, that suspect is on the loose, he's not only a danger to other police officers, he's a danger to the entire community. We need to find these people as soon as possible, a Blue Alert, because we knew who this guy was. And in the New York case, we knew who this guy was. And all we needed to do was put the information out there sooner, quicker, faster, immediately, so we could capture these people and put them behind bars and keep the community safe. You know, also a number of years ago in 1982, I lost a friend, and my best friend and close, my partner. And he was shot and killed chasing a murder suspect. I was one of the cops out there for 3 days searching for this guy in the foothills of the Cascade Mountains, about 45 minutes southeast of Seattle. In 1982, of course, we didn't have this technology, but I know the loss of the feeling of losing. A good friend, a good cop, a father of 5, dedicated, would do anything for his community. We have got to do everything we can to show support across this country for our cops on the street, for their families, and this week especially, when you see a police officer walking around the Capitol grounds, make sure you say thank you. Make sure you say thank you to the family, because this is a loss they will never, ever forget. And neither will we. So I encourage my colleagues to support this bill. I also want to make mention of a good friend who's worked with me on law enforcement issues here in this body, who was the mayor of Paterson, New Jersey. And I always tell Bill Pascrell that he would have made a good sheriff. But he is a strong supporter of law enforcement, first responders, firefighters. He and I co-chair the Law Enforcement Caucus together. He's here in this body today, and I know he's going to be speaking on some of these issues this evening. He's been a good friend to law enforcement, and I appreciate all the hard work that he has put into this bill and others to help support our law enforcement officers across this country. I appreciate the time, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.